Thank you, Chris. I'm going to probably move around a little bit, but I'll do my best to stay in front of the microphone. So the good news is, for what I'm going to share, is it's not going to be data heavy. It's going to be more story oriented. The morning has been full of great content, but a lot of crowded slides. So my slides are going to just be very clean and very simple, and you can continue eating. And I want to just say thanks for the opportunity to be here. I was planning on being here, but I wasn't planning on speaking, but I was grateful for the opportunity to speak because I've been kind of paying attention to what you folks have been doing for these first two SALT summits, this being the third. From a distance, I live in the Philadelphia area, and I wanted to be up here and was able to arrange the schedule to be here, and then had an opportunity to speak. But where I come from, and I'll speak a little bit more about the markets I tend to focus on, it dovetails a lot with what Phil was talking about when we talk about the private markets. The customers that we typically are trying to provide solutions for are the building owners. They're the snow professionals. They're the folks that are taking care of sidewalks, paver walks, stairs. We don't even really get into a lot of parking lots unless it's like parking deck structures. So we tend to really be a company that focuses on getting down into the cracks and the crevices. Like, we're kind of like the bottom of the shoe guys, like somebody who can just get down in there and convey a message to a really small market. That's kind of what our specialty is. And our tagline is people-powered, solutions-driven, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, and it fits in. But just to give some history, Cinetech as a company has been through a number of different name changes, but it goes back to 1869. My 7 grandfathers ago started what was then Moyer & Son, which was a feed mill in Souderton, Pennsylvania, because back in 1869, every town needed 3 things: a church, a bank, probably a bar, a 4th thing, a feed mill, for farmers to bring their grains, to mill their grains. So Moyer & Son was started as a feed mill. Over the years, that feed mill got into other things to support the farmer, specifically fertilizers. So for the last 30 years, one of the things that's been a major area of focus for our company has been the agricultural community, farmers. My background, my family's background, has been in bringing to market products that you would typically describe as maybe, in today's standards, not the most environmentally responsible. I bring that up because it brings a lot of context to my conversation, because I'm sitting here and everything I talk about is always framed in, this is what we've done before. It is what it is to some degree, but it's the best decision we could make at the time when we were making a decision. But one of the things that our company does is, when we see a better way to do something, regardless many times of whether it's the best immediate financial decision, we're always going to look to move in that direction. It's often very unpopular internally. It's often not a favorite decision by some of I have 2 partners. And often, sometimes companies that we've had a long-term relationship with, if their product or way of doing things is in contrast to what we think the future looks like, we don't always become everyone's best friend. So my company focuses on a number of different markets. It might be a little hard to see in the back, but we're hitting, this would be like farm agriculture, we're hitting golf courses, landscape, ice melt, and then it's all kind of under the Cinetech umbrella. We also are very focused on people. I say I have the best job that you can possibly have. Every day, all I spend my time doing is finding really smart, talented, passionate, mission-oriented people to do things with. And they could be joining our team. It could be collaborating with Fund for Lake George, because we believe that the only sustainable competitive advantage that a company will ever enjoy is based upon the caliber and character of the people it's blessed to employ. So that's really important, the people part. And then the execution, the implementation of the solution. And one of the things I was really encouraged by to see this morning is how, first of all, you got a great vision. You have an awesome vision. But so many times I get involved with these different sustainability groups, and I'm like, great vision, there's no way in the world they're going to execute it. They haven't done the right homework, they haven't built the right structures, they don't have the measurement tools. This concept of what gets measured gets done is 100% true. So great vision, but we got to execute it, because what's the point of the vision if we have it, we can't bring it to bear. So I was really encouraged by what I saw this morning. kudos to everyone involved with organizing it. I think it's really cool to think, I've heard this from Phil Sexton, that, and let's just assume this is true, that road salt was used for commercial purposes for one of the first times for Lake Placid's Winter Olympics in 1980. So we could almost say that this region kind of maybe to some degree brought us road salt. It's really cool to think that this region might be the region that kind of takes it away. I think that's a really great sub-story. So I really feel like this group's headed in the right direction. I was really encouraged by what I heard this morning. So going back to this whole idea of, we have things that we've done in the past. So in the past, our company has sold a lot of chloride salts, not so much to roads at all, or even like large parking facilities, but more to landscapers, residential. And I just kind of was feeling like there's you know what? The good news is I don't have to tell you about this. I got a video for it, which helps, because it'll do a better job than I will.
Historically, whether it was a farm field or someone maintaining their own property, they had to make a choice. Do I go the route of something that may not be as environmentally responsible, but I know is going to work and will be cost efficient? Or do I use something more environmentally friendly for less performance and more money? After my wife and I built this house, just like any person who moved into a new home, you got to figure out, what am I going to do with this lawn? One day I'm sitting on my back balcony and it just hit me. I don't know what to use on my own property. Whatever I put down here is going into that creek. A very small percentage of the Earth's water is fresh and available. And so if we don't treat what we have the right way, we will create long-term damage. My family's been in the fertilizer business for longer than I've been alive, going back to 1869. If I can't figure this out, then who else is going to? My goal very quickly became to make regenerative organic fertilizers available to everybody. Many nights I said goodnight to the wife and kids and just spent hours on the laptop doing research. There's products that we're going to bring to market that day one will be able to bring solutions comparable to what people are used to today with synthetics at price points that are going to be no different. When my girls grow up, I hope that every piece of land in this country is being maintained using regenerative, certified organic fertilizers. As much as we want Branch Creek to be a brand that gives people better environmental options and that doesn't have to cost them more, we want Branch Creek to be a brand that inspires people to think differently. And when we start thinking differently as a society, we continue to see this world being a place that our kids and our grandkids can live and thrive.
So the name of the company is called Branch Creek because that's the name of the creek that runs behind my house. So you might be wondering what the connection is to salts. Once I had this kind of like, call it aha moment that like I got this creek behind my house and I don't even know what to do with it, it started forcing this whole different way of thinking. And that's really what I want to focus this afternoon, is it's great to have the strategy, and you guys have a terrific one. But we also need to look for ways that we change kind of how we see things. The head kind of leads the heart a lot of times. And for me, just seeing this, I don't know what to do in this environment, forced me to kind of think differently at a heart level. And so it started pushing me, this is about 4 years ago, to look at everything we do as a company, including salts, and say, are there better ways, more environmental ways that we can be bringing products to market? So Branch Creek exists for 2 reasons. The second one is what goes in our soil goes in our water. And we kind of talked about this earlier today. There's a terrific connection between getting rid of chlorides and what we're trying to do with Branch Creek. Second thing is we exist to bridge the gap that exists in our country between our demand for organic and our ability to supply it. So that first one probably looks more at food. You go to a grocery store and there's an ever-growing organic section of that grocery store, which is great. As Americans, we're terrific at creating demand. We're not often as good as meeting the supply. So what we see is prices not changing. We see food still staying really far away from the people, and we see a lot of imports of inputs to produce these certified organic products. So one of the other reasons that Branch Creek exists is to bridge that gap. And we continue to move into other markets. I bring this up because we're in New York. In a couple months, we're going to roll out our Safer Play line of pesticide-free products, because in New York, you've got a law that says you can't use pesticides on sports fields. Good law, just haven't been any good products to support it. So we're looking for this Branch Creek Safer Play brand to help bridge some of that gap as well. When we talk about ice melt, and Phil kind of set the stage for this conversation. So you guys are here talking about highways, which is great. This is a team effort. And just think of me like I'm the guy just sweeping the floor. You guys are just hitting home runs, and I'm just the guy that you come in for a bunt at a key time in the game, though. But so we're focused on a different area of this whole how do we reduce salts, how do we get rid of salts. And our primary focus is really as close to the door as possible. So what we find is what I call the value equation. Looks different to a building owner than someone who's working out on a highway. It's just the reality of how people think. And I knew that we weren't going to be able to get someone to buy a non-chloride ice melt, no matter how good it worked, if we couldn't get the price point to work the right way. And so what we came up with was an idea that said, how about this? We design a product that's a chloride-free product, of which there's others, but most importantly, we're going to design one that's residue-free. Because then when it goes into the building, we don't have the cleanups associated with the chlorides. When a granular chloride tracks into a building, it's like tracking 100 grit sandpaper on the bottom of your shoes. We work with an organization called the Clean Management Institute, which is under the umbrella of the International Sanitary Supply Association. So if you were someone who cleaned buildings for a living, you would know exactly who that organization is. And we hired them to do a time and motion study for us to understand how much money are they spending inside here for what they're doing wrong here. It comes out to be about $50 per storm per salt event, short-term cost. Long-term costs, we're still working on that data, but all we needed was the short-term $50 to start talking to building owners about what you're doing here is hurting you here. And so entry, makes sense, call it entry. We focus, when we talk to building owners, focus on using it here because of the money you're going to save in here. In addition, you're not going to damage metals, plants, pets. Environmentally, we're not discharging into the environment, and people get that conversation very quickly. Unfortunately, they don't buy it because it's a better environmental product. We designed it to be a better environmental product, but it's like the 7th reason why people buy it. But the cool thing is we are getting people to make better environmental decisions, whether they understand it or not. Someone said, I can't remember, somebody said you gotta just start small. You gotta get people to start thinking one way a little differently this morning. This was our one way to start getting people to think differently. We didn't say, come over here and use a different product. We just said this 15-foot area, this 15 feet in length, is what is driving 95% of the granular tracking into the buildings. So if this is a 4-foot wide service walk, we'll call that 60 square feet. This 60 square feet outside the building is creating 1,000 square feet of tracking and damage inside the building. This 3-inch wide metal door threshold might as well be the Rio Grande River, because what we're doing here isn't in congruence with what's out here. When we go to cleaning shows, we talk about it this way. It's almost like there's somebody outside the door with a bucket putting the salt down, and then someone inside the door with a bucket is cleaning it up. How does that make any sense? So when we structure the value equation around a non-chloride, people start to understand it. We start getting them to use a non-chloride solution. And you know what happens? Even though we say, don't use a chloride here, but do whatever you want over here, you know what they start doing? They use it here. And they start using it in bigger areas because we got them to think about one spot where it could fit. So that's entry, and that's kind of a new way that we're thinking about salts and how to reduce salts. And the other thing too is, even though we're focused on one bag at a time, get rid of salt one bag at a time, there's folks in this room that you guys are thinking of hundreds of tons at a time. So I get it, like this is a really small part of the conversation. But here's the thing, we're touching the people that ultimately are maybe some of the ones that stand in the way of some other conversations at a bigger level that need to happen. Because maybe they think that you can't be salt-free and effective. And we're trying to break that mindset. You know, this is a collaboration. We got to come at it from both sides. So that's a little bit about entry. It has some connections to this area, and so it's really kind of cool that I have a chance to chat with you guys, because my wife's a first grade school teacher, and they do parent-teacher conferences the Monday through Wednesday before school starts. And so I always take my kids someplace warm. Then my wife will join us on Wednesday night because it's kind of a busy week for her. And normally we go someplace warm, but at the beginning of the snow season, we always have different products we want to test. They're always non-chloride products. We're always innovating, trying to find new solutions so we can keep staying out in front of the stuff. But you can't test an ice melt product unless there's snow. We can test slipperiness and humidity. We can test damage to plants. There's other things we can test, but until you physically use it in a snow environment, you don't know. And being from Philadelphia, we don't get snow every day. So when there's a snow within 6 hours of Philadelphia, at the start of the season, rest assured, I'm going to be there with a minivan full of stuff. But normally, I don't have to drag my kids along with me. But last year, the first significant snow was the weekend before Thanksgiving, and up in Lake Placid, they got obliterated. I think on the Saturday before, it was beautiful. I don't know, I wasn't there. I just heard snow was coming. I told my kids, get in the car, we're going up to Lake Placid. I had really never been to Lake Placid before. I just knew that it was a place where it was snowing, and there was a hotel there, and it had an indoor pool. So we were going. So this is my kids leaving Pennsylvania. You know, things are looking pretty good here. I don't know if any of you guys were driving that truck. It starts to get a little shaky here. This was that Route 73 pass coming through the mountain. I was sure I wasn't going to make it. My kids are asking, are we okay? And I just couldn't even respond. And then this is what Lake Placid was at that time. But that was the first place that I got to trial what is now Entry last winter. So getting that first initial feedback that the product worked the way we needed it to kind of set the stage then for the early part of the winter to kind of start getting it out to other people and start really understanding how the product worked. I want to talk a little bit about lessons learned just through kind of my story, because I get involved in a lot of these how do we do better for the environment conversations. You know, whether it's in the golf course world, whether it's talking to conventional growers or organic growers, when we talk about salts, I get involved in a lot of these discussions, and I often think about kind of my own experience of like, how do I go from like, I got this creek in my backyard and I don't know what to put down, to like now talking to this group, like, what happened in between? What did I learn? And maybe what things could I share that might help this group as you guys take this to the next level? One thing I would say, and I talked about, you know, the heart has to change. This really has to be a mission. You might want to use the words like objectives and stuff like that, but this is really a mission. And so we got a plan and a mission, but if we don't believe in the mission, we're going to struggle to accomplish it. So I really would encourage you to be thinking about, you know, how, you know, what we're talking about today is more than just a head conversation, but also as a heart one. So the first thing is progress, not perfection. I felt like you guys were talking about this morning. We're not going to change this overnight. Phil was talking about like we're maybe 20% in this category, 0% in this. Overall, we're maybe this. That's good language. Keep using that language. Some people are going to want to throw it in your face that you should have figured this out 2 years ago. That's unfair. It is fair that we continue to move things forward, continue to see progress, but don't get caught up in perfection, because the people that want to derail this for some reason or another are going to want to point at the fact that this problem still exists and it's not happening fast enough. The other thing I would say is pay attention to coincidence. Like this whole journey, I kept it really short, but there's just so many things that one after another. It's like, why do we even build this house along the creek? How come it's the guy whose family has his fertilizer business from 1869? Like, all these things just layer on. And for some people, everyone believes everything's coincidental. For some people, they believe it's for a reason. And for me, what I found myself saying often was, what a coincidence, or what a small world. I would encourage anyone who's going through this sustainability movement, if you find yourself saying, what a coincidence, or what a small world, just stop for a second and just see maybe if there's something else going on that you should pay attention to. So I encourage you to think about that. The last thing I would say is the collaborate, and that's probably the most encouraging thing I saw here today, is people exchanging ideas, different perspectives. You know, we're all in this together. We might be coming at it from different perspectives, but if our mission is to reduce chloride salts in Lake George by 50%, then we got to do it together. We can't do it individually. Eric, I think you talked about that at first. That's incredibly important. And you know, I hope that I can be part of this collaboration. And I'm excited to be even here today to have it be part of this dialogue. The last thing I didn't put there, because I couldn't fix it on the slide, is basically focus on being effective, not on being right. I see this most, and I don't know the dynamics of this group and this region enough to even say whether this fits here or not, We see it a lot in what I'll call organic agriculture. So right now in this country, you've got conventional growers who do it one way, organic growers who want to do it another way, but nothing's moving because the two groups don't know how to talk to each other. The conversation becomes divisive right away. And so when we talk to that group, me specifically, I don't use conventional versus organic language, pesticide versus non-pesticide. I just talk about where we've been and where we're going, because then those two groups can have dialogue. But what ends up happening is there's such a focus on being right that everyone loses track of being effective. And so I think, in any, from where we've been to where we're going conversation, that includes salts, there's going to be differences of opinion. And so often we're going to need people that just can kind of step in the middle, not worry about who's right, and just focus on what we need to do to be effective. So that's basically all I have. Anything that you would want me to add that I didn't? So that's all. Thank you. And if anybody has any questions or anything, that's my email address.